The night had settled softly over Manhattan, wrapping the city in a calm, silvery haze. Inside the towering glass mansion of Alexander Pierce, everything gleamed, from the polished marble floors to the gold-rimmed frames that hung along the grand staircase. Alexander, a self-made millionaire, was the picture of success. To the world, he had it all: money, fame, respect. But to those who knew him closely, Alexander was a man defined by control. His life was a routine of precision: meetings, calls, contracts, and above all, perfection. His mansion was run like one of his companies. Everyone had a role. Every second was scheduled. Every mistake was intolerable. That's why, on this quiet Tuesday evening, when he decided to return home without notice from a 2-week business trip in London, it was more than just impulse. It was instinct. Something in him had been restless, unexplainably so. He missed his children, perhaps. Or maybe, deep down, he was tired of the sterile perfection of hotel suites and empty applause. He wanted warmth. He wanted home. But what he found when he opened the door would change his life forever. The unplanned return Alexander's key turned silently in the lock. The house was dim, the lights low, but it wasn't empty. He heard soft laughter drifting from the living room. Strange, he thought. His twins, Noah and Lily, were supposed to be asleep by now. He walked quietly, setting down his suitcase, expecting to find his head housekeeper or the nanny. Instead, what he saw stopped him dead in his tracks. There, sitting cross-legged on the carpet in front of the fireplace, were his 8-year-old twins, and next to them the maid, Angela, a quiet, gentle woman in her early 30s who had joined the staff only a few months ago. She wasn't cleaning or organizing the room. She was teaching, and not just teaching, speaking with her heart, the scene that stopped him. Cold Angela's voice was soft, melodic, filled with warmth that wrapped around the children like a blanket. "Now remember," she said, drawing something on a piece of paper, "riches aren't about what you own, but what you give." Lily tilted her head, her curls bouncing. "But my daddy says money is what makes people listen to you." Angela smiled gently. "Your daddy's not wrong, sweetie. Money can open doors, but kindness can open hearts." The children giggled, and Noah asked, "So kindness is like a magic key?" Angela chuckled softly. "Yes, exactly. The most powerful key in the world. It doesn't need a bank account, just needs you to care." Alexander froze at the doorway. The room glowed with the soft flicker of firelight, shadows dancing on the walls. His children, his perfectly dressed, private-schooled, impeccably mannered children, sat barefoot on the rug, completely entranced. In Angela's presence they were different, softer, more alive. And then he noticed what was on the table, hand-drawn pictures of smiling faces, houses, and hearts. Words scrawled in colored pencil, helping others, sharing love. Angela was teaching them values, not lessons from their school, but lessons from life. Something in Alexander's chest tightened. He had built empires, negotiated billion-dollar mergers, but at that moment, standing unseen by the doorway, he realized how little he truly knew about building a home. An unseen bond. He didn't interrupt. He couldn't. Instead, he watched as Angela began to hum softly, a song he didn't recognize. Her voice filled the room, rich and low, the kind of voice that carried history, the kind born from struggle, faith and love. The twins joined in, off-key but full of joy, clapping their hands, and as Alexander watched, something inside him cracked, a wall he didn't know he had built around his heart. For years, he had prided himself on giving his children the best schools, the best toys, the best clothes. But this moment of laughter, of real warmth, was something he had never given them. When the song ended, Lily hugged Angela's arm. "I wish you were our teacher," she said softly. Angela smiled. "I already am in a little way, aren't I?" Noah giggled. "You teach us better than Mrs. Hall from school." Angela laughed, but her eyes flicked briefly toward the family photo on the wall. Alexander, his late wife, and the twins. Her expression softened with something like sorrow. "Your daddy loves you very much," she said gently. "Sometimes grown-ups just forget how to show it." That line hit Alexander like a blow. He stepped back from the doorway, heart pounding. The truth of it stung. He had forgotten to show love, to slow down, to be present. The confrontation. The next morning, Angela arrived early as always. She entered the kitchen quietly, tying her apron, humming the same song from the night before. "Good morning, Mr. Pierce," she said politely when she saw him already there, dressed sharp as ever in a navy suit. He looked up from his coffee, his eyes studying her with an intensity that made her pause. "Good morning, Angela," he replied, his tone unreadable. There was an awkward silence. She assumed she had done something wrong, perhaps staying too long with the children, crossing a line. She braced herself, but instead of reprimand, Alexander spoke softly. "I came home last night," he said. Angela froze, the color draining from her face. He continued, "I saw you with my kids. I'm so sorry." "Sir," she stammered, her hands twisting the edge of her apron. "They couldn't sleep and I didn't mean to." He raised a hand gently. "No, don't apologize." Angela blinked in confusion. "I just didn't realize," he said quietly, "how much they needed that. How much I needed to see that." Her eyes softened. "They're good kids, Mr. Pierce. They just miss you." His jaw tightened. "I've been trying to give them everything," she smiled faintly. "Sometimes everything isn't what they want. Sometimes they just want you." The hidden story as days turned into weeks. Alexander found himself observing Angela differently. Her work was meticulous, yes, but her heart, her patience, her quiet resilience fascinated him. He learned that she came from Atlanta, that she was raising her younger sister after their parents had passed. She worked 2 jobs, the hotel in the morning, his mansion in the evening, just to keep her sister in college. But what struck him most was that Angela never complained. One evening, he overheard her telling Lily a story about a little girl who used to dream of building a library for her neighborhood, where children could read for free. Did she ever build it? Lily asked eagerly. Angela smiled wistfully. Not yet. But maybe someday. Something in Alexander's chest stirred again. The next morning, while reviewing a proposal for one of his charity foundations, his eyes lingered on the blank line labeled Community Development Projects. Without quite knowing why, he wrote, "Angela's library, seed funding $100,000. He didn't tell her. Not yet." The day everything changed a few weeks later, tragedy struck. Angela's sister Marianne was in an accident. She survived, but her hospital bills were overwhelming. Angela arrived at work pale, her usual calm replaced by quiet panic. She tried to hide it, but Alexander noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" he asked gently. "Nothing, sir," she said quickly, forcing a smile. "Just a family matter." He studied her face, the exhaustion, the worry in her eyes. "You've been good to my children, Angela. Let me help." "No, sir," she said immediately, shaking her head. "You've done enough. I can't accept." He cut her off. "This isn't charity. It's gratitude." She looked away, tears welling. "I don't want to owe anyone." Alexander's voice softened. "Then don't owe me. Pay it forward. The way you've already been doing." For a long moment, Angela said nothing. Then she whispered, "Thank you," the climax, what he overheard. A few nights later, Alexander came home early again. The house was quiet, save for faint voices from the twins' room. He walked closer and stopped, hearing Angela's voice once more. "Do you know what your daddy did today?" she was saying softly. The twins shook their heads. "He helped someone who needed it, without asking for anything back. That's called being a hero," Lily smiled. "Like Superman?" Angela chuckled. "Something like that. But real heroes don't wear capes. They use their hearts." Then Noah asked the question that made Alexander's throat tighten. "Are you a hero, Miss Angela?" She paused, her voice trembling slightly. "No, sweetheart. I'm just someone trying to make the world a little better, one person at a time." Outside the door, Alexander closed his eyes. For the first time in years, tears rolled silently down his face. The transformation weeks passed. Marianne recovered thanks to Alexander's quiet generosity. The twins grew even closer to Angela, and for the first time their laughter filled the house. Real, unrestrained, alive. But the biggest change wasn't in them. It was in Alexander. He started coming home earlier. He learned how to cook breakfast for his kids on Sundays. Clumsy at first, burning toast, laughing through it. He began listening more, working less, and realizing that wealth meant nothing if it wasn't shared. Angela, meanwhile, began to dream again. The library project, once a fantasy, was now real. And one sunny afternoon, as she cut the ribbon at the small community center funded under her name, she saw Alexander in the crowd, standing proudly beside his children. Their eyes met across the distance, and in that single, silent exchange, gratitude flowed both ways. The lesson months later, as autumn leaves drifted past the mansion's windows, Lily came running into Alexander's study. "Daddy," she cried. "Miss Angela's coming for dinner." He smiled warmly. "Then let's make sure it's special." That evening, as they all sat around the table, laughter, stories, and warmth filling the air, Alexander looked around and realized something profound. This wasn't just his house anymore. It was a home. The woman he had once seen as just the maid had taught him the greatest lesson of all, that love, humility, and kindness were worth more than every dollar he had ever earned. As the night drew to a close, he raised his glass softly. "To heroes," he said, meeting Angela's eyes. She smiled back, her voice steady and full of grace. "To hearts that still believe in good." And in that quiet moment, surrounded by family, laughter, and light, the millionaire who had once lived only for success finally understood what it truly meant to be rich. The weeks that followed the library's grand opening brought a new kind of peace to Alexander Pierce's mansion. It wasn't the cold, pristine silence that once hung in the air like glass. It was the warm, living quiet that followed laughter. The kind that lingered even after the children had gone to bed, carried by the echoes of joy. For Alexander, life had slowed down. He no longer measured his worth in contracts signed or meetings held, but in moments shared. Breakfast with the twins, walks in the garden, stories before bedtime. And Angela, she had become something far more than a maid. To the children, she was a teacher. To the household, she was a light. And to Alexander, she was a reminder of everything he had once forgotten: empathy, simplicity, and the beauty of an unguarded heart. The evening that changed everything again. It was a late autumn evening. The wind carried the scent of rain, and the city glowed under amber streetlights. The twins were asleep, their room filled with soft breathing and dreams. Angela was finishing up in the kitchen, humming that same melody she always did, the one Alexander had come to associate with comfort. He lingered by the doorway, watching her work. "You always hum when you're tired," he said gently. Angela jumped slightly, then smiled. "Old habit. My mama used to say if you sing through your work, the world won't seem so heavy." He nodded. "Did it work?" She looked up, her eyes thoughtful. "Sometimes. Not always. But it reminds me of her, and that's enough." Alexander hesitated before stepping closer. "I wanted to thank you, again. Not just for what you've done for the kids, but for what you've done for me." Angela blinked, taken aback. "For you, sir?" He smiled faintly. "You reminded me what home feels like." Her lips parted slightly, emotion flickering across her face. She looked down, suddenly shy. "You were always capable of that, Mr. Pierce. You just needed a reason. An unexpected visitor." A week later, Alexander received a visitor, Thomas Hall, his old business partner. Thomas was everything Alexander used to be, sharp, ambitious, constantly on the move. He took one look around the house and laughed. "You've gone soft, Alex," he said, sipping his drink. "Where's the man who could close a deal at midnight?" Alexander smiled calmly. "He's right here. He just has different priorities now." Thomas chuckled. "Priorities? You mean that maid? Word gets around, you know." Alexander's expression hardened. "Her name is Angela, and she's the best thing that's happened to this house." Thomas raised a brow. "Careful, my friend. The world doesn't take kindly to blurred lines between employers and staff." Alexander's gaze was steady. "Then the world needs to rethink its lines." The conversation ended there. But as Thomas left, his words lingered, not as doubt, but as clarity. Alexander realized how much he had changed. The man he used to be would have cared about perception. The man he had become cared only about truth. A heartfelt confession. That evening, after putting the twins to bed, Alexander found Angela reading in the library. the irony not lost on him. "You built this place," he said softly. She looked up, confused. "Sir?" "The library in the city. It bears your name. But what you've built here," he gestured around, his voice thick with emotion. "You built a home." Angela's eyes softened, but she shook her head. "No, Mr. Pierce, you did. You just needed someone to remind you where to start." He smiled faintly. "You always do that, make it sound simple." "It is simple," she said. "You just have to care." He took a deep breath. "Then let me say this, I care. More than I ever thought I could." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full, alive. Angela looked down, tears glimmering. "You don't have to say that, sir." "I know," he replied. "But I want to." The twins' gift winter came swiftly. Snow blanketed the city, soft and quiet. On Christmas morning, the twins burst into their father's room, giggling with excitement. "Daddy, come downstairs. We have a surprise." Alexander followed, half asleep, smiling. But when he reached the living room, what he saw made his throat tighten. In the middle of the room stood Angela, holding a small wrapped box. The twins were bouncing beside her. "Open it!" Lily cried. He unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a photo frame hand-painted by the twins. The picture was simple. Alexander, Angela, Noah, and Lily, all laughing together in the backyard. Below it in bright, messy handwriting were the words, "Our family." Alexander's vision blurred. He looked up at Angela, who was blinking away tears. "You let them do this?" he asked softly. She smiled. "They wanted to. I didn't have the heart to stop them." He reached out, gently taking her hand. "Neither do I." A new beginning. The years that followed were quiet but full, the kind of life Alexander had never imagined for himself. The mansion no longer felt like a monument. It felt like a living, breathing home. Angela's library expanded into a full community center, serving hundreds of children. Alexander funded it, but Angela led it, with the same humility and grace that had once changed his own house. Noah and Lily grew up remembering not their father's wealth, but his warmth. They remembered bedtime stories, burnt pancakes, and Angela's laughter filling the halls. And sometimes, on calm Sunday afternoons, Alexander would find himself watching Angela from a distance. Her smile, her kindness, the way she spoke to everyone as if they mattered. He would think back to the night he came home without notice, and how, in that one unplanned moment, he discovered the most valuable truth of all. Love isn't something you buy, it's something you learn. And sometimes, the greatest teachers come from the humblest hearts. The once lonely mansion now echoed with life laughter, footsteps, music, and the soft rustle of pages from the library downstairs, the same place where everything began. Angela's library had become more than just a project. It was a living legacy, the Harmony Foundation, a safe haven for children who had no place to go. Books lined the walls, donated clothes filled the corners, and hope filled every inch of space. Alexander often visited, but rarely spoke when he did. He preferred to watch from a distance, to see how a single act of kindness had blossomed into something greater than either of them imagined. Angela stood in the middle of it all, reading to a group of children, her voice steady, her heart unshakable, but deep down she knew. Her time here had changed her too. She wasn't just the maid anymore. She had become something far more powerful, a woman with purpose, an invitation on crisp evening, as the golden light of sunset filtered through the curtains. Alexander knocked softly on Angela's door. She turned, surprised. "Mr. Pierce?" He smiled faintly. "You can stop calling me that, Angela. It's been 5 years." She laughed softly. "Old habits die hard." He took a deep breath and handed her an envelope. Inside was a card, elegant, cream-colored, embossed with gold. "What's this?" she asked. "An invitation," he said simply, "to a gala next week. The Harmony Foundation's anniversary celebration. It's in your honor." Her eyes widened. "In my honor?" No, that's not," he stopped her gently. "It is. You built this. You deserve to be recognized." She hesitated, emotion flickering behind her calm eyes. "You've already done so much. I don't need a celebration." He looked at her for a long moment. "It's not about what you need. It's about what you deserve." The night of the gala, the ballroom shimmered under a canopy of lights. Guests in elegant attire filled the room. Investors, community leaders, and families whose children had been touched by Angela's kindness. But when she entered, dressed simply, gracefully in a white gown that reflected the soft light, every head turned, not because of the dress, but because of the peace she carried. Alexander stood by the podium, his usual composure softened by something rare, pride. When the music quieted, he began to speak. 5 years ago, came home unexpectedly, he said, voice steady, and I found something I never expected. A woman teaching my children not just to read, but to feel. To care, to dream. He turned toward Angela, his gaze warm. That moment changed everything. It reminded me that wealth is nothing without purpose, and power is nothing without compassion. Tonight we celebrate the heart that rebuilt not just this house, but this community. Applause filled the hall. Angela stood frozen, tears glistening in her eyes. When the crowd finally quieted, she stepped forward to the microphone. Her voice trembled at first, but grew stronger with each word. I was once just a woman looking for work. I didn't have much to offer, just love and the hope that it could make a difference. I never imagined it would lead here, Mr. Pierce. Alexander, you gave me more than employment. You gave me belief that goodness can still change people, that kindness still matters. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, it felt like the world disappeared. After the gala, when the last guest had left, and the lights dimmed, Alexander found Angela standing alone on the balcony. Watching the city lights, he joined her quietly. You were incredible tonight, she smiled softly. You were the one who believed in me. He shook his head. No, I just saw what was already there. For a long time, neither spoke. The city glowed beneath them, endless, alive. Finally, Alexander turned to her. Angela, I've spent years trying to thank you, but nothing I do ever feels like enough. She looked at him gently. You've already done everything, Alexander. He hesitated, then took a step closer. Then let me do one more thing. Angela blinked, confused, until he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her breath caught. Alexander. He opened it. Inside was a simple, elegant ring. No diamonds, just a single band, pure and timeless. I don't want to offer you luxury, he said softly. I want to offer you a life. A life where you never have to doubt your worth again. Where love isn't payment, it's partnership. Tears welled in Angela's eyes. You don't have to do this because you feel grateful. He shook his head. I'm not doing it out of gratitude. I'm doing it because somewhere between your kindness and your courage, I found the woman I can't imagine my life without. For a moment, the world stood still. Then through tears and trembling laughter, she whispered, yes. Epilogue. 5 years later, 10 years since that night when a millionaire came home without notice. Now, Alexander and Angela's story was known not as scandal, but as legend, a story whispered in the city's heart. The twins, now grown, often visited the Harmony Center, teaching the next generation just as Angela once did. And in a quiet corner of the library, beneath a framed photo that read, Our Family, sat 2 names engraved side by side. Alexander and Angela Pierce, proof that kindness can build empires. Final message. Sometimes the greatest love stories don't begin with passion. They begin with compassion. When a heart dares to care, it changes everything. What started as service became purpose. What began as gratitude became love. And what was once a mansion became a home.